Hello everybody, my name's Schwan, and I'm going to teach you how to use an IRC client today. But I'm going to break it down into three different sections. The first section is if you are completely new to IRC and you're not interested in downloading and configuring a standalone client. If that describes you, stay on this section of the video because we're going to talk about something called auth2.org. I'll have a link up in the description, but it's really easy to get to. Now once you're here, it's a web chat modification that Sync made that makes it so that when you connect to the Gamesurge network, it automatically joins all the channels that are relevant to TF2. So let's go ahead and see how that works here. We can make our nickname whatever we want, and we can authorize, so we can log into Gamesurge if we have an account, but since this is the newbie section of the video, you don't actually need to have a verified account to play in the different pugs that go on in TF2 or access the different channels. So we're just gonna not use any Gamesurge authentication. We're gonna save that for the different sections in the video. So we'll connect using the name tutorial, and then we'll be into all. If you look on the top of the bar, you will see all the IRC channels relevant to TF2. So we got ESEA's channel, we have TF2 Pug, Pug and A. The Highlander pugs, we have the Ulti-Duo pugs, which maybe still happen, I don't know. And then we have TF2 Mix, which is a good channel for, some newer players. And it looks like there's a pug going on right now. And then there's TF2 Scrim, where you can find scrims. So let's talk about how to actually use this. Now you notice when you click on each one of these tabs, nothing happens. You need to double click them to join, to have the current view switch to a channel. Now I'm going to focus on TF2 Mix because it's one I want this video to be focused towards. And you'll see in the right side, there are these people with @ symbols next to their name and plus signs and then, regular, nothing next to their name. And what that means is the users with plus signs have voice in a channel and the user with an @ sign have admin in the channel. Now, if you need to, in the pug process, there's a bunch of commands that you get to use, and I'm actually going to switch over to those commands right now. A link to this will be in the description as well. And you'll see that you can add up as a class. So you can do !add and then soldier, and it'll add you up for soldier for the next pug. !mumble sends you the connect information for mumble. Need shows you what classes are needed to start the next pug. And need sub, okay, so this is important if someone you're playing with decides that, oh god, I can't pug anymore. So you could type into IRC this command with the IP and port of the server and the class and the color, and then it would start spamming the chat saying, okay, well we need a sub for, red team on Dallas 1 soldier. And then if you wanted to take a sub spot, you would just type !sub space and then the ID of the sub, which would be like 1 or 2. So you'd be like !sub space 2 or 1 or whatever it is, and it'll be really obvious when that situation comes up, and then it'll give you the information as if you were picked for the pug. So we're going to move on to !players. That'll just list all the players that are currently added up in the pugbot. And then !status will give you a list of all the servers that currently run pugs and what players are, or not what players are in them, but what games are going on, how far the games are in, and the map that the server's on. Remove removes you from the queue. So if you add up with !add and then class, and then you decide that you actually can't play, you could !remove. So that's just a general walkthrough. I'll link that into the description. But if we switch over back to this tab, there's one more thing about IRC that's important, which is if you want to get the attention of anyone particularly in this channel, you'll see their names are over here in these brackets. So if you want to get their attention, it's good, and you can type down here. Ooh, the screen's too big here. My bad. Alright, right here. You can type down here, and it reminds you what channel you're typing into. And you could just type, like for instance, if we wanted to message Rudy, we could do RODY, comma, or we just need to put his name in our sentence somewhere, and it'll actually highlight our message on his client. So that's a good way to get in contact with people. Another way, and this is really good if you're using the Scrim channel, for instance. If someone posted in here saying they wanted a Scrim, you could look over on the user list and you can query them and send them a message. So let's say that, Enigma wants the Scrim, you think you're good enough to play Mix-Up. You could click on his name, and then you could click Query, and then you see a tab that comes up with Enigma's IRC account, and you can send him a message down here. And it's easy as that, and then that's how you would send messages through IRC, talk in IRC, and I even walked through how to use the mix bot. Now, if you wanted to use the pugbot or the pugbot, it's extremely similar. So you kind of learned an overview of a bunch of different pug channels, and the next segment of this video is going to be if you don't want to use a web client and you want to have a Gamesurge account and you want to make sure you mask your IP address and you want to make sure that for example, if you want something that looks like this, a client with everything over here, you're logged in, you have different settings that just the way you like them, and it's a little bit cleaner in my opinion. If you want something like this, then you should stick around for the second part of the video when we talk about how to set up a client. So let's skip ahead to that. Hello everyone to my part 2 of my IRC tutorial, and this is going to be an example of how to set up an IRC client instead of using this web client. Although the web client is good, there are certain benefits to using a standalone client, which is you can always have it on, doesn't take up a tab, you can mask your IP, you can do multiple connect commands, and that kind of stuff is what we're going to talk about today in this part. So we're going to go ahead and talk about something called, here we go, hex chat. So in Windows, there are a ton of IRC clients. A lot of them are open source. The one we're going to talk about is hex chat. You might have heard of xchat or MIRC. The thing about MIRC is it's not free. It's $20, and so is xchat. Xchat is also $20 after a certain period of time. The difference is that I'm getting messages over here. That's kind of weird, so I'm just going to go ahead and close this. But the difference with hex chat is it's open source, and they kind of took the code from xchat and just made it a Windows version of that Linux software and called it hexchat because xchat wasn't actually getting updated enough. So, long story short, we're going to use that client. I'm going to put a link to this in the description, and you're going to want to download the correct download that's right for you. And if you look down here, you'll see x86 is for 32-bit, and x64 is for 64-bit. I would download this one. And once I would because I'm 64. If you're 32, download this one. But once you have that downloaded and installed, you will see something that looks like this. So I'm going to go down to this channel, and once you come here, it might look a little bit different, but that's okay. But the first thing we're going to do, no matter what it looks like, is add network. So we'll go to this network list, and the first thing we're going to do is fill out all this stuff. It doesn't really matter what you put here. Except for this one. This is kind of the only one that matters. Maybe this one. But anyway, so you're not going to see anything neat like this. You're actually going to see a list that looks mostly like this. So the first step would be to add Gamesurge. So I pressed add and I just started typing, and then you'll see we have the Gamesurge right there. We'll click on it. We'll press edit, and we will click here. And now you could also have this highlighted and press edit, and then type irc.gamesurge.net. Okay, good. And that's good so far. And you want to automatically connect to Gamesurge when you start up the client. And a good way to think of, actually we'll talk about it a little later, but trust me, you're going to want to connect to this on startup. And then the next thing that's relevant is the favorite channels. These are the channels you want to join automatically when you join the Gamesurge server. So for now, I'm just going to put tf2 scrim and pound tf2 mix and pound pug.na. So those are the channels that we want to join when we connect to Gamesurge. And the next thing is the connect command. So this is the intermediate tutorial, how to set up the client. So we're going to set up an account on Gamesurge. So the way to do this is go to the link that's in YouTube, that's in the YouTube description. You'll come across something that looks like this, and you'll type in your account, your email, you'll verify, and they will send you a password that you'll have to use to log in for the first time. And later we can change that password, which I'll also walk you through. So when you get that password, you will use a command that looks something like this. Let me pull it up real quick. Connect command. So this is also going to be in the description, and you will replace username and password with the username you are registered with and the password that was emailed to you by Gamesurge. So mine would be Schwan, and then the password would be whatever Gamesurge gave me. Alright, so that's good. We all checked out so far. We don't need these two fields, and we're done. We've completely set up the server for Gamesurge. We'll go ahead and close that. And now whenever we launch hexchat, Gamesurge will launch. It'll connect to our automatic channels that we listed in our favorites, as you can see here, and it will log us into Gamesurge. Okay, so, and I kind of want to explain the way this works. So like, if you look up here, Gamesurge is a server, and then this tree diagram shows the different channels. And the way you can think of that is Gamesurge is a TF2 server, and then the team you join are the channels. So first you got to join a server, then you got to join a team, the same way you join a server, then a channel in IRC. So that's just a way to visualize that. And let's go ahead and guess that. Okay, so you closed down HexChat, you reopened it back up, you automatically connected to Gamesurge and all the channels, and you logged in, because that's what step we're on so far. The next step would be to change your weird password that Gamesurge sent you to one that you might be able to remember easier. So we're going to go to this link, which will also be in the description, and you'll see that we can type this command in, and we can change our password. So if we go to HexChat, and just on the Gamesurge tab, I just click on Gamesurge, and then I can type in here. I would type in, I would put Schwan right here, and then I would not put Schwan right there. I actually messed that up. I'm sorry, authentication, that's not what I want. I want this one, here we go. This one will reset, will change your password to something that you choose instead of what Gamesurge chooses. So we'll go ahead and put that here, and then I would change my old password was remember what they sent me. My new password is what I want it to be, which is Boulder's Nose. Okay? So now it would change whatever password I had to Boulder's Nose, and then once I put this command into, once I press enter here, it'll change. So that, remember, what we have to do then is go to HexChat, network lists, pull this down, edit the Gamesurge one, and change our old password to Boulder's Nose. Okay, so if we don't make that change, then we won't actually log in. So make sure you remember to update the information on the network list. All right, so now we have all that nailed down, and let's kind of work on getting the feel of HexChat down here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. So there's a few tweaks that I would recommend when you're using this client, and the first one, I'm sorry here, I got to move some stuff around. The first one would be opening URLs. So opening URLs kind of acts odd. So like if someone would send you a link, you'd have to double click it, which is fine. But for me, I'd rather single click it. So I'd go to just this Gamesurge tab, and I would put this command, which will be in YouTube, and it'll just make it so that every time I click on a link, it'll just open on my first click. So that's the first change I would do. The second change I would do, especially if you're using Windows 7 or you just like using the computer the way I do, is you would go to Settings, Preferences, pull this down. And by the way, I changed the font to oh shit, I didn't read that right. Whatever. I changed it to that 10. And so if it looks a little different than yours, that's why I changed the font. That's just user preference though. Also, if you want to enable timestamps, for instance, see how on this left side I see exactly what time people were sending messages? When you first launch this, it's actually not, it's like military time instead of, the time we're all used to right now. So if you make it look like this, it will use the correct time and won't assume that you're in the military. So, but what I actually want to talk about was the tray icon. So we'll go to Settings, we'll go Chatting, and then we'll go Advanced, and then we will do the System Tray icon, which should be around here somewhere. Did I skip over it? Man, maybe I didn't skip over it. Let's see. Why don't I see it? Well, while we're here, we might as well talk about the copy and paste command. So to copy something out of HexChat, you actually need to do Control-Shift-C instead of just Control-C. And there's a way to get around that, which is this checkbox right here, which is on by default, which I want you to uncheck because it confuses people. Once you highlight something in the channel, it'll automatically copy it. When you don't really want that, it's better just to uncheck that and get used to using Control-Shift-C. All right, so now let's talk about the system tray, which is in the alerts panel here. And also, I'd recommend that you make your alerts look something like this, so that when someone mentions your name or sends you a private message, these two, it blinks on the tray and makes a sound. I wouldn't make anything for the channel message because you just get spammed with beeps and bops and flashes. But right here it says enable system tray, and I would just enable that because in Windows 7, now I can just minimize that, and it minimize the hex chat, and it would just minimize to the Windows toolbar instead of like into the system tray, which is kind of annoying for me at least. And I feel like there's there's one more setting. So we're going to go to settings, we're going to go to chatting, and then advanced again, I believe. Okay, we're going to talk about this one right here, hide, join, and part messages. So when someone connects to the channel, when someone leaves the channel, that can get kind of spammy. You really don't need to know, unless you have a specific reason why you want to. I would recommend that you hide when people join or leave the channel, because for me personally, I feel like it makes the channel really messy, and I don't like that. So we'll go ahead and check that box. And that's it. We are done for setting up the client. I believe I've covered. Alright, sorry to interrupt, but I forgot one thing in this part 1, which is how to message a user. So on the right side, you'll see all the users that are currently connected to the channel, and if you wanted to message Enigma, you would click on his name, you would right click on his name, you would do open dialog window, and on this side, in this tree interface, you would see that a window with Enigma in it appears, and you can talk to him through this. You can also close the window by going over to Enigma's name and pressing close. This is very useful in #TF2 scrim, where you could message someone who was talking and set up a scrim with them. Also, you can do it by pressing on like someone who just said something, like this guy who said, "Go scout, please." I could press on his name, open dialog window, and I could just talk to him through there, and then I could close it. So, that is how you message users with this client, and I can't believe I forgot it, but now I'm going to get back to it. Back to you, me. Everything. Actually, I'll go into one more thing. So if we go here, remember how we made this Gamesurge thing? I'm going to actually rename that Gamesurge 2, but yours will be Gamesurge. And a good thing to do is just mark that as a favorite. So we just click favor over here, and it turns bold. And then if we just click this button right here that says show favorites only, it only shows channels or networks that we marked as favorite. So I did this, this is just the stuff that I use, but this makes it a little bit cleaner and easier to manage. And that's it. So then part 3 of this video is going to talk about how to. So let's say you wanted to hide your IP address and like stuff like that. The next video is going to go over how you would send more than one connect command, and it might go over a little more in depth on a few of the concepts. I'm not sure what I haven't covered yet, but if you want to hide your IP address, which I highly recommend, you're going to need to put in more than one command, and that tutorial is going to be coming up next. So stay tuned. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the third and final part of how to configure your IRC client. Now, I have it narrowed down. So in this third part, we're going to talk about using multiple connect commands, which I would describe as, so if we click on Gamesurge, you'll see that instead of the authentication command that logs you in the Gamesurge that I talked about in part 2, I actually have something completely different. And what this does is it loads a text file, and on that text file, it has multiple commands of what I want Gamesurge to do to my account when I log in. And it's multiple things. So an example of that would be masking your IP address. So if you don't want your IP address public for various security reasons, you would want to make sure that it was masked. But if you want to mask your IP and log into Gamesurge, you actually can't do that within this window, because this only actually lets you put one command. So instead of putting one command here, we're going to point it to a text file with multiple commands, and that'll do the job just fine. So let's talk about right now. Let's go to, I would recommend just putting it in your documents. So we could go into documents, right click here, we could do new, and then where's text document? Text document right here. We could name that, commands for whatever, .text. Doesn't matter what we name it. But then once we open that, I'm just going to delete that because I already have one open. So once we open commands.txt, we're going to want to put in 3 commands that are like this. So the first one is very familiar. It's your authentication command. So you'll put in your username here. So my name's Schwan, and then your password, which was Boulder's Nose, I believe, is what I changed it to. And then you'll see that I have 2 other commands that I want to enter, which is changing my mode to +X and I. And we'll go ahead and talk about right now. A link to this is in the YouTube description. And +X is the one that masks your IP. So instead of, and it does give a pretty good explanation on this page too. But anyway, what it'll do is it will tell you right here, like what ISP you're on, and your IP address, and also it will actually no, it'll just it'll use your IP address when someone looks you up. So I'm not going to do it to anyone in this video, but if I just go to my name and I right click and I press, I just go over Schwann, you'll see that it doesn't actually tell you what my IP address is. And for some people, it'll just totally tell you how you're connecting to Gamesurge, which some people want to keep secure, like me. So I don't want that necessary. So me changing my mode to +X is what prevents that. So let's go ahead and go back here. And then you also see +I sets you to invisible. So when someone does a command that's like /who or /names that just gives them a list of everyone connected, you don't show up in that list, which I think is also important. So if we go to commands.txt, this is what it should look like for you. Your username, your password, +X and +I. I'd recommend both of them. There's really no downside. So once we close this and save it, I'm not going to save it because that's not right, but once we do that, so we put that in our documents. Now my documents are a little bit different because I have an SSD and a regular hard drive, and I put my documents on my regular hard drive, so it's not on the C drive. There's a little bit of difference, but that's okay. So what we want to do to get the location of this file is go to wherever you saved it, and then in the top of this window, you'll see like, okay, we went to computer, disk, drive F, documents, and then this is where our text file is. So let's go ahead and just click up there, and it'll give you exactly where it is right now. So we will just Control-C, copy that information right here, and we will work it into the command I showed you a little earlier, which was this one. So we would type load in all caps, space, line E. I can't think of the name of that right now for some reason, -E, and then space, and we would put in what we copied. So I'll go ahead and take this out. So we copied that from this bar up here, correct? Good. So we did that, but now this is only pointing it to our documents folder. What I really want to do is point it towards the file. So what we want to use is a /, which is a little bit like a lot of people do backslashes like this, but you see how this is pointing the opposite way of this one? We actually want a /, and that is above the enter key on your keyboard. So /, and then the name of the file. And if you remember, our file was commands.txt. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do commands.txt, and that's it. So we close this, we'll reconnect, and it will launch all those commands. Now there's a few notes to this. I believe you don't want to put your connect command file, like this text file that we made. I wouldn't recommend putting it in a place where you would need you would need the user account control to kick in to access. For example, the program files folder. Also, I believe if, for example, my documents folder was named my documents, I think you would need to put quotes because there is a space in this file area. All right, so anywhere there's quotes, you would need to put quotation marks and not leave it blank. But if there's no space in your directory, then you can just leave it like this. Okay, so I think that just about covers multiple connecting commands. And the last thing we're going to talk about is changing it so that when you join, you don't see all the old conversations that happened before you joined, or last time you joined, I believe it is. So let's go ahead and go to Settings, Preferences. We'll go to Display, I believe. No. Chatting. Okay. Then Logging. Okay. And then Display Previous Scrollback is the first one under Preferences, Chatting, Logging. Display scrollback for previous sessions. And I would just recommend you uncheck that. You can keep it if you want it, that's fine. But I'm just letting you know that that is the thing you can change about HexChat. And that's it. So in this we talked about masking your IP, setting your mode to invisible, and authenticating all in the same command. And that's it for the end of this is the end of the video. That's it. All 3 parts. If you have any further questions, I wouldn't recommend typing those questions into YouTube because I really hate YouTube comments a lot. What I would recommend if you have questions is I'll put a link to the forum where I'm going to post this video. It's called teamfortress.tv. There's a forum on that website where I'll post this video, and in that forum, I'll answer questions when they come in. So that's it for the video. I hope that you're going to start using IRC and idling in channels and always having it open and being secure because with your masked IP, and enjoy IRC. It's a really good technology in my opinion, even though it's pretty old at this point. But that's it for the video. My name's Schwan, and I'm out of here.